We are live every Monday, noon. You will see us here. We are here indeed. We just got off a good weekend here, feel recharged, ready to get into it. This week, we are going to be talking about IVF, always a fun topic to be talking about. We are going to be talking about Google Gemini, maybe missed the mark significantly, some would say. And then we're going to round it out with where these Christian nationalists believe their rights come from. And maybe we were prophetic on a previous podcast. We talked about it. But we're going to talk about IVF. Okay. So we spent some time. This is not a new issue for Catholics, and actually excited in some ways to talk about it because we have we're one of the few organizations that have kind of a rich intellectual tradition thinking about this kind of thing. But we had a court case come down from Alabama. It had to do with two couples coming forth, bringing a lawsuit because someone got into the lab and destroyed their frozen embryos that were in a tray. And so they actually sued the fertility clinic, saying that someone had actually basically hurt their child. It's under a law there right now. I have the name of the law, Wrongful Death to Minors Act. So it brought up all these conversations about, wait a second, are embryos actually children? Are they something less than children? Of course, Catholics have thought about this, but the secular world tries to actually stay out of that a lot. So it brought a lot of things to the forefront. Erica, why has this kind of burst onto the scene and created so much controversy?
Yeah, this is a touchy issue. And I don't mean touchy in a dismissive way, but it just touches the core of so many emotional strings, right, going on here. And I think that the reason why this Alabama court ruling is actually three couples. There was an accidental dropping of a tray of embryos, and the embryos were destroyed in the lab. And Alabama law, the municipal court at first dismissed it. They said this is not an issue, but then the couples brought it to the Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court, which is charged with upholding the law, which in Alabama state law currently recognizes that every human child, regardless of their location, and in this case, one of the left's sort of taglines that they've glommed onto is this extrauterine child that the court came up with. Extrauterine children are worthy of legal constitutional protections because under Alabama law, life begins at conception, and whether that happens in the mother's womb or in the petri dish, they are worthy of the same protection. So in fact, the court upheld this. And I think, like I said, one of the reasons why this has sparked so much of a firestorm is because Democrats see this as a winning political issue, right? They see this, they understand that, over 85%, the stats say, of Americans approve of IVF. They see it as a way to build families, to help couples struggling with the terrible cross of infertility, which is a real suffering for many couples. And so emotionally, the Democrats understand that emotionally they have the American people on their side here, just as we saw. And I would tie this, to similar outcomes we saw with abortion measures in Kansas and Michigan, Ohio. The Democrats see that attacks on human life are a winning issue for them, and so this is a great way to bring IVF will be banned everywhere in the United States because you can't recognize these embryos as children, because if you recognize that, then oh my gosh, well then abortion's murder, right? They understand the stakes. And I think Catholics also, because of our rich intellectual tradition, we understand the stakes in recognizing frozen embryos as humans.
Let me press you on that. Let me press you on that to start. So what are the stakes? What are some of the quick, easy hitter, problematic things when we see IVF?
Yeah, so I think the stakes with IVF, if you have a legal system that recognizes that life begins at conception, then you are suddenly faced with the reality that we have over 1 million human lives in frozen stasis in the United States. And if you get a court saying those are human lives with constitutional protections, suddenly you've opened up this can of worms that's saying, these frozen embryos are deserving of something, of
They're
dignity.
humans, right?
They're
What should we do with them?
humans. Yeah,
Right.
which we've been saying, the Catholic Church has been saying since the beginning of time. But the left understands that they can now say, oh, the court said that these are humans. Oh, well, this is going to end IVF, and that's going to kickstart this emotional reaction with the American people. And it's been fascinating watching pro-life Americans and conservative Americans try to grapple with this ruling, because unless you have the consistent principle that, yes, these are human persons and deserving of protections, you're left with this sort of vague, okay, what are we going to do with all these frozen embryos?
If I could ask Josh, because this was discussed and I don't even fully understand this because this fight was happening when I was pretty young, but you've said it's almost reminded you a little bit of the gay marriage rights argument, the fight for that at a certain time. Why did you say it reminded you
Well,
of that?
no, I mean, I think the debate it reminds me about more is in the whole Obamacare. So Clinton gets Barack Obama passes Obamacare, and then immediately afterwards we say this is a violation of our religious freedom rights because we're now forced to support sterilization and abortifacients and birth control and all this other stuff. And the left seized on this and said, hey, wait a minute, Republicans are against birth control? Mm-hmm. It's like, no. We didn't say we are trying to pass a law to make birth control illegal. That's not really on the table. That's not really an option. What we are trying to do is just say, don't force religious nuns to pay for birth control and also sterilizations and other forms of so-called health services that Catholics don't believe in. But see, again, the left loves to lie. So they love to make that the debate. And so you're not even having a real debate. Now, we can have a debate as a society whether or not IVF should be legal or not. I would, of course, love it for it to be illegal because I think it's patently obvious that it's immoral to create human life in a petri dish. And of course, the problem with it, when you do it, you end up creating a lot more lives than you need. And there's selective reduction, as they like to call it, in the womb. And then also the ones that are put in basically a freezer. And it's a lot. It's the kind of thing that people don't really like to talk about a lot. One of the reasons they don't like to talk about it is because you feel your heart goes out for people who are infertile, and you want to figure out what, you want them to have children, and I mean, it's obviously my wife and I have been blessed with 6 children. We didn't have any fertility problems. My heart goes out to those people that have that situation. I talked to somebody just, today who said, hey, look, you really should we could use this as a moment to talk to couples and let them know there are other things like NAPRO that understand, what it is about the woman's fertility and work with that and try to help along that, and can find out, hey, wait a minute. And now they've got like 5 kids and it worked out well for them. And they didn't have to do IVF for anything artificial. It was just understanding the way the body worked a little bit better. So there are fertility treatments that don't get this moral quandary of IVF, which I think is, the church thinks is immoral. And again, my heart goes out to them. Now, I saw online people discuss this, and they're like, oh, well, some Catholic pro-lifers like, typical, Trump's not going to be there for us. It sounds like he's going to be a squish. And then you have some people like Jack Pogasic. How do you say his name?
Not Pogasic.
I can never say it.
Definitely not.
Poso. Call him Poso. Jack Poso.
Calling him Poso. And Poso's like trying to, he's the super Trump fan. And so he's like, yeah, let's be pro-life. Because Trump is like, hey, people want babies. IVF is the pro-life position. That's not true. But Jack Poso's like, well, how do I try to make this look good? And he's like, yeah, let's try to adopt these frozen embryos and bring them to life. I mean, I don't know if that's really the solution. I mean, I think the heart's in the right place, but I think what he's trying to do is to try to make it sound like Trump's IVF position isn't bad. I mean, it is bad. Now, I would say this. I'm sure, like Erica said, it's like something like 85% of the American public think IVF should be allowed. It's going to take pro-life Catholics who understand the moral problems with this. It's going to take us a long time to try to convince Americans to think twice about this. And so if we say, well, we got to ban it right now because we got one court that finally kind of saw the light on this, a state court, realistically, what's going to happen is the legislature in Alabama is probably going to pass a law within the next few weeks and make sure that everyone knows that IVF is perfectly fine in Alabama. So what can we do as pro-life Catholics to try to respond to this moment? Well, I think first of all, preaching to the choir actually is a good thing. So what we can do is let other Catholics know, actually, IVF is morally problematic. In fact, the church considers it to be wrong and evil. Yeah. And there are, by the way, much better ways. And let me tell you about some of these better fertility treatments. And then what we can try to hope for is the next time we get a president in the White House who's pro-life, get that president to say, now, I'm not saying you should, tackle this issue head on. I'm not saying you should try to make it illegal. I realize that that's probably not in the cards for a while or for the foreseeable future. But what we can at least do is find out what's going on here. I mean, we have these IVF companies that are making millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and we have no idea what their procedures are, the regulations are. It's just sort of
shocking.
Wild West.
I think one of the first steps.
So a little disclosure. Let us know what's going on. Go ahead, Erin.
Right. I think one of the first steps is to draw attention because so little is known. I know some of the people on our politics staff, they were looking it up and there's so little information about this industry. I looked it up. This is like $4.1 million a month. It's a massive industry, a lot like the abortion industry. And so little is known. And it was really fascinating for me to dig in a little bit into the way that the European countries approach this. And again, I believe with the church that IVF is the commodification of the human person. It is immoral. But like you said, Josh, it is not in the cards right now for us to have anything more than an incremental approach. So I think that educating people about the fact that we are in the wild west of the fertility industry here, and that other countries that we often try to emulate as Americans, they don't see it that way. So I was looking up some of the regulations in the European countries. So in America, there's no limit on the number of embryos you can conceive, quote unquote, in the petri dish. There's no limits on, how long you store them, how those storage facilities are regulated. It really is just left to the companies which treat these embryos as commodities, or in the case of Alabama now, liabilities, and really cash cows. But if you go to European countries, you'll see regulations like in France, you can only create 2 embryos at a time. That's it. And then you implant both of them. In Spain is the highest number you can do at once, and it's 3. Like there are reasonable, and part of the reason why Europe regulates it so highly is because they recognize the emotional stakes, the political stakes, and they're like, okay, this is, it's Orwellian, really, or not Orwellian. Let's go with Huxleyan, more Aldous Huxley than Orwell. Yeah. So it's really interesting, and I think starting to educate Americans on something that we don't really talk about that much because of the emotional baggage. It could be a step forward for pro-life Americans trying to make their way in a post-sexual revolution America.
Yeah, and you're right. If I could just add some scale real quick, because for most, like, this is probably speaking for myself, like, I think Catholics who haven't gone through the IVF process don't really have a grasp on what the American industry is like. But like I found an article of someone basically saying, yes, I'm a converted Catholic. I went through the IVF process. She said the doctor retrieved 38 good eggs. 31 of them were fertilized. Over the next week, 16 of our embryonic children die and are discarded. 13 are cryogenically frozen, mostly 2 to a vial. 2 fresh embryos are transferred to my uterus. And then the babies ended up miscarrying as it was at 21 weeks gestation.
Oh, man.
And half the babies didn't survive thawing. I mean, just take a step back from all of this. Like, this is almost like it almost feels like a Star Wars conversation, like that technology would get to the place where you're watching your children die in a petri dish. It's like science fiction almost. Talk about just something horrible to even put a couple through.
I wish it were fiction.
Right. Yeah. I wish it were fiction as well. But just like, I think the hardest thing about it is like 2 of the biggest lies I see actually secular people may be coming around to, and this isn't going to be a immediate fix, hormonal birth control, as like how horrible the effects of that are on young women. I mean, young women start getting prescribed that when they're 13 years old and stay on it sometimes until, they can't have children anymore, which is crazy. All the effects on that are horrible. And then number 2, IVF, because the problem with IVF in my eyes is there's never any addressing of the biological reality of a woman's cycle. It's just completely circumventing that, going towards really intense, expensive medical intervention process. You never really work with a woman in a collaborative way to understand the root causes of why you might not be able to have children. And so that's what's so cool about NAPRO. And I'm speaking from personal experience here. Like, I have been around women who were terrified of their own body because they didn't understand it, because they had irregular cycles or different things.
They saw it as defective, right?
Totally saw themselves as the problem. And talk about like an empowering experience to be able to teach a woman how to understand their own body, understand it as natural, be able to regulate it properly. And then you're not only going to be able to have a better chance at fertility, but also be a lot healthier personally. So that to me just seems like, and it exists, right? Anyone could do this tomorrow, but I don't think a lot of people really know about that outside of really like Catholic circles, I guess.
But it's one of those things where, we had a we discussed nutrition on the Loopcast many months ago. And one of the points that you made, Pogo, is that good eating, right? Just eating normal stuff like vegetables and meat and proteins, that kind of stuff, is good for humans. But it doesn't make corporations money like potato chips.
Don't get me started, Josh.
And snacks, right? And snack foods and sugary pop, right? That's what makes them money. Therefore, they're going to push that, right? Like, who's going to do commercials on the Super Bowl saying, eat vegetables, yay? It's like, no one's making money on that, so they're not going to do it. Well, this is the same thing with regards to this. Even if somehow IVF were not immoral, which it is immoral, but even if somehow it wasn't, companies would still be pushing it because there's a lot more profit in there than there is simple fertility awareness or some of these other fertility methods like NAPRO that aren't as really that big of a moneymaker per se. Do you see what I mean? So there is that element that's kind of underwriting this.
Oh, hormonal birth control? Are you kidding me? That's a $1 billion industry with a B. I mean,
yeah, of course, right.
There's no money to be made in telling people to be abstinent, and
but I was just talking about the fertility treatments on one hand. You're talking about the contraceptive thing as well, which I think they
go hand in
all
hand
together. Yeah,
of course. But I'm just saying, the left, all those movies like about all the President's Men, Watergate, follow the money. Something. Maybe some of these young women should start to ask themselves, why is it that these companies and these industries are pushing me this way? Is it for my own benefit, or is it perhaps that they want to make a ton of money? Worth asking.
I think it's also worth asking, just as Catholics, how we're doing with couples struggling with infertility. And I saw Nighthawk had thrown up on the screen there a story that I found at Femme Catholic about this one couple's struggle with the Catholic Church's teaching, and they were so pained by the infertility, their inability to conceive, that they went down the IVF road and eventually came back around when they experienced for themselves the commodification of their bodies and their children, and starting to see each other. That this isn't just, we talk a lot about, as Catholics, about the sexual act, the conjugal act being procreative, but also they begin to recognize that when you separate the procreation of children from the sexual act, you also start to damage the unitive aspect of that act that brings a couple together as a man and a woman. And she said that, eventually after, their embryos were transferred out of state because of some policy change and she was just brokenhearted. She finally went to her priest. And what turned her around was that the priest, with much compassion, said to her, look, the problem with IVF, and I'm quoting, is that it treats babies as commodities rather than human beings. IVF is a business and babies are the product. And she goes, it's a very beautiful reflection. I'll drop it in the show notes. And she said, all I know is that IVF unsettles me. They're not pursuing that anymore. But please pray for me and all couples walking through infertility. And this is her prayer. May my desire for you, God, be greater than my desire for a child. And I just thought it was a beautiful reflection there.
Oof.
I just want to though add on one thing here though. Like, while I'm happy that the priest compassionately gave her the truth, and that is to be commended, I can't help but just ache a little bit, because wouldn't that woman have benefited from knowing what the church stood on this issue beforehand? And how would she have known?
See, that's interesting. One of her points though is she knew. She had read the document, she's trained in theology, but their desire for children, that this is my purpose as a woman, it overcame that intellectual knowledge. And
Yes.
it's a tough question.
But theology should not just be an exercise that's private between you and the documents that you're reading.
Mhm.
Even with you and your spouse, let's say, in the documents that you're reading. Again, I'm not trying to harp on. I mean, I'm thankful that the priest was compassionate and presented the truth. Those are what were required. It's just that it would be helpful if we had a church where this was a regular thing and taught, promulgated from popes, priests, bishops, all throughout the whole church, that, hey, look, I know people are struggling with this. I mean, here's an opportunity. This came up in the news now.
Well, Josh,
how many priests are going to start?
The CDF did take this up. I don't know if you remember.
I know. I'm familiar. There's a document that Ratzinger wrote before he became pope that's actually very phenomenal on this. But again, it's one thing. It can't be just like we did write this piece of paper in 1986 discussing this. Like, yes, look, I get it. But like, there are couples every month that are going through this anguish, and they're thinking, well, is this the solution for me? Should I think about this? It shouldn't only be Catholic websites, Catholic.org or whatever, that are going through and explaining to people, actually, you know what? You really shouldn't do this. We love you. Compassion, truth. That's good. I'm glad we have that. We need that. But it would be nice to have a little bit more of an ecclesiastical response, because it is painful. It is a touchy subject. But if it's never brought up, then how are people going to know? Not everyone has a theology degree or whatever, like this lady does. They're not well versed in it. They're looking to the church for guidance.
Right.
So Josh, if I could schoolhouse rock this real quick, because let's just say, for the sake of this hypothetical, the church has done a good enough job so that there's a decent amount of Catholics that just in no situation would ever advise IVF, understand it to be immoral, would never advocate for it publicly or in law, etc. We're talking about an issue that garners 80 to 85% of public support. People see Trump say, I'm pro IVF, we're pro more children. What do you think the best way for Catholics to approach this debate in an effective manner today to be?
Well, what's going to happen is the state of Alabama, the legislature there, is going to debate what to do about this ruling, and they're going to, I'm almost sure of it, within a few weeks, pass a law, and the governor will sign it, that will make it clear that couples who are struggling to have children can use IVF. And the liberals will say, wait a minute, you're being contradictory. You said you're pro-life and you believe life begins at conception and this and that and this and that. I mean, I'm just telling you, barring a miracle, and miracles do happen, but barring a miracle, that law is going to get passed in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And so pro-lifers in Alabama and throughout the country can at least advise them, saying, hey, it ultimately is not going to really change anything. IVF is now kind of on halt in Alabama because of the court ruling. So I'm not trying to say that's not changing anything. But my point is, it's almost a lock that the lawmakers in Alabama are going to pass a law allowing couples to do IVF again, because the consensus is, it's not a unanimous, but it's like 85%. They're going to pass it. What can we do? We can educate people about why we have serious concerns, because it is immoral. We think it preys on infertile couples. We don't think it's, we think there are better fertility treatments that respect human life. Ultimately, what we can try to do is convince lawmakers to make it a better bill, reform it or whatever. I would hope that they don't establish in law that life begins at implantation, which is one way they might just try to get away from this.
Mm.
That way, IVF would be perfectly fine.
That's
I
the
mean,
hill
so
to
there's-
die on, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can't.
yeah. I mean, the thing is, you can still pass a bill like this without surrendering the principle. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I just would say, this is an opportunity. I'm waiting for the Catholic lefties to pounce on this, because I'm sure they'll use this as an opportunity to say, oh, you're pro-life and you support Trump, but Trump is totally against this.
Right.
And it's hilarious because you say to these Catholic lefties, like, you support Biden, who supports abortion on the day a baby's born, and
Right.
you're gonna, and you're gonna pretend like you're on the high horse here. Like, give me a break, So, I mean, look, Donald Trump is not Pope John Paul II. He's not gonna.
Amen.
He's not gonna issue Evangelium Vitae. He's not gonna.
No argument there.
This is the debate that we're gonna have to chip away at for a long time.
Yeah, and I agree. And that, again, the politics is the art of getting stuff done. So just because Trump isn't there yet on this issue doesn't mean, okay, we all have to jump ship and now we just let Biden run again for 2024. So it's like, my issue with this is when people come to me like that, is like, yeah, he's not perfect. Of course. Have you ever seen anything problematic that he's done? Like, yes, we all have seen it.
But look at the alternative, right?
Again, politics is the art of getting this done.
Like,
so
yeah,
I'm not,
and I don't understand why there would be any, frustration with that. Like, yeah, it's frustrating. Like, there's a speck in our guy's eyes, lots of specks in our guy's eye, but the other guy's got like 1,000 planks coming out of every part of his body. Like, give me a break. I mean, Joe Biden is a wretched human being, and he supports abortion on the day a baby's born.
Right. We understand. We understand.
He wants to push porno books on kids. I mean, like, come on. Like, so is my guy like Superman? Am I going to worship him because he's awesome? And if he says something, I suddenly agree with it. Oh, I thought IVF was immoral, but now he says it's okay and pro-life, so I'm going to go for it. No,
well, and not. I think too, just our experience of Trump v. Biden in terms of someone who is willing to negotiate, concede, compromise, make a point. Like, I have much more hope that with Trump in the White House, we could actually have a conversation about regulating the IVF industry and at least make some gains in that direction. Under Biden, there is no question there would never be any kind of concessions there. So again, like, understand. Politics, art of doing of finding what's possible, getting it done.
Well, Erica, first you'd be able to actually have to have an intelligent conversation with Biden, which I don't honestly, genuinely do not think is possible. I'm not sure that's possible,
right?
Stage of his life,
or whoever's running the White House.
They were making fun of him on Italian TV. Did you see that?
I saw that. That was that's what SNL should be doing. But
talking about Israel and Gorbachev.
SNL had a good moment this weekend, I have to say, with the sneakers.
Well, with Shane.
Yeah. And then the stand-up dude with it was great.
Shane Gillis is the man.
It's possible, but I'm not holding my breath on SNL.
I saw someone ripped to take like Shane Gillis has done more for shaming people that are against Down syndrome kids than anyone in the movement has done ever. And I was like, honestly, it's kind of true. Like, Shane Gillis on the Down syndrome stuff is so funny. It's like it is. It's like very endearing for, of course, anyone that knows someone with Down syndrome. Anyway, that's a whole nother tangent we don't need to get on right now. Let's keep it moving. I had an ad popped in. We have some exciting stuff going on with the Loop. So we have goals. We have big goals. We are searching for $1 million by Super Tuesday. We would use this money to get the Loop to 1 million subscribers. Josh, do you have an active ticker of where the Loop is at right now in terms of subscriber base?
We're north of 650,000. So we're moving. We're cruising.
That's crazy.
That's right.
Crazy.
That's right.
So we have a place. If you want to help out with this, if you feel like the work is meaningful, you want to reach more people, get us to 1 million. So that will be loopcast.org. So loopcast.org. If you want to help donate, you want to help out the Loopcast, of course, by proxy. It's kind of what we do here, Josh. So thank you in advance to anyone that's helping out there. Again, loopcast.org. I'll have it in the description if anyone wants to help out with that campaign. So we move on to the next one. And the section is best described as "You do not hate journalists enough." So there was an article written by the AP. I think we could just start there. Nighthawk, if you want to just pull up the AP article, should be in that tweet there. It was about unfortunately, a young woman dying. She was murdered, running on the University of Georgia's campus. I want to say her name because I would love some prayers for the repose of her soul.
Laken Riley.
So Laken Riley tragically was killed in UGA in Athens. And so the AP wrote an article. And typically when journalists are doing investigative pieces on what happened, they like to refer to police reports. They maybe go into who the suspect, his past, his history, where the motivation is.
The who,
So-
what, where, why, and how.
There you
Basic
go.
journalism.
That's big J journalism. right there.
101.
So instead of doing that, the AP decided to write an article entitled "The Killing of a Nursing Student Out for a Run Highlights the Fears of Solo Female Athletes."
First of all, there's like a million things wrong with this.
Go off.
Where
King.
to begin?
First of all, how does the AP know anything? Wait, can the AP even define what a female is?
No.
They just found out, I guess.
Remember, that was the last 2 years they haven't been able to say what a female is, and suddenly they can find out what a female is when talking about a female athlete and the dangers of a female athlete because she's jogging. What again? This is like intentional deception. Like that is not the concern. That is not the concern that lots of moms and dads are thinking about with their college students. Oh my gosh, poor female athletes are at risk. No, what they're concerned about is the fact that this man, Jose Abera, crossed into this country illegally in September 2022. They apprehended him at the border. And because we have catch and release, this crazy program where instead of saying, oh, you entered this country illegally, we're going to return you to your home, Venezuela. No, we can't do that. We let him out into the country and say, in a few years, you can have your asylum trial where you can make your claim for asylum. And so then he somehow gets a trip up to New York, whether it's a bus or whatever, gets to New York, gets arrested again. Child endangerment, right? That was last September 2003. So now he's arrested. September 23, right? September or November?
You said 2003, which was the year I got married.
Yeah.
But sorry.
2023.
Hey, we're with you.
Sorry. All right. So September 2023, he gets arrested again, this time in New York City. Child endangerment, right? But what happens? They don't have any spot to detain him, so they just release him and let him out again. A second, arrested, caught, let go. And then a rinse and repeat. Arrested, caught, let go. He goes from New York down to Georgia. Athens, Georgia, where the University of Georgia is a sanctuary city. So they're not going to be, what does that mean, sanctuary city? It sounds so nice. Oh, they love churches there? No. What a sanctuary city means is they're not going to cooperate with ICE and federal law enforcement officials about someone's immigration status. So this guy is in Athens, Georgia, murders Laken Riley.
How's that not illegal?
Now, the reporters, what do the reporters do? They refer to him not as a Venezuelan, not a national, not as an illegal alien. Maybe they didn't know he was illegal at first, but they knew he's from Venezuela. They could say Venezuelan national, right? They don't say that. They say Athens resident. He was someone who was residing in the city of Athens, which is technically true. That's where he's been for the last few months until he murdered this woman. But it completely obscures the fact. They don't want you to think he was in the country illegally, because then you might think, well, why do we have an open border?
Right.
They're trying to prevent Americans from understanding the truth. So they're obscuring and preventing you from knowing certain facts. This is a media that hates you and hates your family. When are Americans going to wake up? Laken Riley is dead because of Joe Biden. It's baloney.
Yeah.
Yeah, just unconscionable reporting here.
Quote from the AP article, quote, "It's unpreventable, I think, what happened to her," end quote, she said.
Right. Oh. I can think of at least 4 points we had in the last 2 years where this could have been prevented. This man should not have been in the country. He should not have been. I mean, the catch and release is just, especially they know he's a danger to people who were weaker than him.
But see,
unbelievable.
Some would say, well, trying to enter the country illegally, you're just looking for a better life, and they're not necessarily violent. But he was arrested for child endangerment in New York City. So at that point, why do you let him out? This drives me crazy.
But what does it even mean to arrest someone who's not even here legally? Like our legal system is not set up to handle people who we can't even recognize. We don't know anything on this guy. It's
thing
basically
is, if he has no identification, you put him in holding, and then what's supposed to happen is you find out somehow who this person is, and you talk with the immigration officials and say, here we got this guy, take a photo. Do you have him in the database somewhere? And they could have said, oh yeah, he crossed the border, near El Paso in September 2022. And then you'd be like, oh, was he illegal? Yeah. And you let him out. Okay. Yeah. So then in New York City, if you arrest him for child endangerment and you find out he's in the country illegally, maybe you communicate with ICE and you don't let him go. But of course, New York City is also a sanctuary city, probably the first one, right? And they're not going to cooperate with federal law enforcement officials. This drives me up the wall.
Right.
Yeah, but since when did it become acceptable to not cooperate with federal law enforcement officials? Like, I don't even understand how that even became a thing. Shouldn't we you could just say no now to stuff you don't like? Like, that's crazy.
Right, because they understand that there's no will in the federal branch to impose the law. So if there's no will, they can say whatever the heck they want. This was a great story, actually. It came out of it in Bloomberg.
It's lawless, Tom. You're right, though.
Yeah, it is lawless. This came out in Bloomberg around Christmas time, actually. But I pulled it up again. Venezuela, where this perpetrator's murderer came from, the Venezuelan rate of violent deaths has dropped to its lowest level in over 2 decades. Why? Because we are following years of massive migration as criminals and victims flee the nation. Right. We've imported them here. So it's just, it goes through the stats, right? We have never said anything about it here. But the fact that the AP, that so many people still rely on, is failing to understand it, to say this. I mean, it's just
for people that don't know, just a journalism 101 again, too. People don't understand. Maybe they don't know this, but the Associated Press is a wire service. And so every newspaper in the country pretty much has their own articles in their own local newspaper. So like the Detroit News has their reporters that cover the scene in Detroit, and they submit those articles to the wire in case anyone else in another part of the country wants them. Well, so this story is now hot. And so some reporter in Georgia uploads it, and then now it goes on the AP wire throughout the whole country. So AP is not like it's not like a small, in case anyone was wondering what it is. But again, they're following the same kind of tide. It's using, we want to use the English language to try to better inform people, right? Isn't that what journalism is supposed to be about? So wouldn't you say, hey, for good or for ill, this happens to be an illegal alien that has committed this murder? Does that mean illegal aliens commit crime at a higher rate? Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but it's the facts in this case.
Right, just the facts.
Why would you avoid it? We should be able to know what's going on in our country. And people who enter into a country illegally, gosh, maybe they don't have as much respect and love and neighborly, and that's, again, the Catholic left likes to say, well, welcome your neighbor, embrace the stranger. But you know what?
If I could jump in, so there hasn't been a homicide in Athens in like 30 years, I think the police chief was
the first time in decades.
And of course, this is a bomb that blew up. But am I the only one that sees? This is just so obvious. I don't know if other people think this. So people that are here illegally, it's just a ticking time bomb of people that, like, if I live in a society, live in America, pay taxes, people in my local community know me, I have a driver's license. Like, if I were to do something like this, my life would be over immediately and I would never be able to leave jail, right? Or even something like less than this, like a misdemeanor or whatever. Like, people know who I am.
Like the other stuff he was arrested for.
Exactly.
Well, exactly. Stealing the car or stealing drugs, right?
It's the whole purpose of, like, registering someone places. Like, even we register who has guns in this country. Like, people that are citizens, they have ties that make it easy to hold them accountable for the things that they do. But if we have people here who don't even have proper documentation, I know that, like, at the southern border, a lot of people will leave
undocumented citizens,
and they'll say, yeah, pick your name because I hope you like it, because that's what you're going to be known as in America. Like, we don't even have the kind of relationships with other countries to even, like, they don't have the databases of people that are even in their country. So there's just no opportunity for real accountability. Therefore, a huge public safety problem. Even if no one was going to do anything, like, and of course we know human nature, there's going to be a certain amount of percentage of people that are going to be doing things like this and need to be held accountable. Like, why do we have the police to begin with? Why do we have the military to begin with? You know what I mean? Like, this is just a huge time bomb. I don't understand. It just blew up. And so people are angry about it now. The coverage, of course, is outrageous, but, like, this is a problem that, of course, could have been solved. Maybe that's what's most infuriating about it. It's a real problem that could have been solved.
100%
And the people
preventable. Yeah.
that are in charge of making those decisions to ensure that justice is promoted in our country are either intentionally not doing it, and then the question bears, why are they intentionally not doing it? Or they're just so dumb that they just, I don't know. I don't think the answer is they're so dumb. There's something that's happening. There's a real erosion of the rule of law, and I'm really nervous about where that puts us because
Well, I think the left
it's not
wants
good.
social unrest.
Make a mess.
Well,
Oh wait, that
I
was
mean,
someone else.
yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll go that, even though I don't like that guy. But no, I think what's going on here is that the Biden administration is intentionally allowing for open borders policy to create unrest in the country. They want to transform America. And that's what Barack Obama talked about, transforming America to something else. Like what person who loves their country would allow 11 million people to cross the border illegally? It just does not make any sense. Unless, of course, you think, oh, they really are nefarious. These people that in our government do not have our best interests at heart. Maybe we should remove them from power.
Chance is coming.
So pray for the reposed soul of her, and again, it's like you don't just pray and not do anything. Like you have a real decision to make. Do we want? One side has shown how they want to handle this situation, and it's caused people die. I don't understand how you could be on the other side of that. But we have a little bit more of I don't even know if this is fun per se. It was kind of fun to see this all come out. So Google has released their AI model. Shout out to anyone in the comments if you've played around with the Google AI model Gemini before they took down image generation. Let me know if you had fun with that. I certainly did. So Nighthawk, we have some examples of image prompts that kind of hit the internet hard. So Google Gemini had a real problem generating historically accurate images. Let's put it that way. The first that really hit the scene were founding fathers. That one looks like a Native American, one looks like a black man. One kind of looks like Bill Cosby a little bit with some hair, and then one was an Asian man.
It's like the Gemini creators got all their history lessons from Hamilton the musical. Like this is it, guys.
So, and then the Pope one was fun too. Go over to the Pope one.
Oh, I love the Pope one. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Ooh, wow.
Oh, wait, that the Viking.
There we go.
The Pope, we have an Indian woman as the Pope and an African man. Which, hey, if it's Cardinal Sarah,
I was just
first in my mind.
Yep.
If we have a Pope from sub-Saharan Africa, there's like a 98% chance it'd be a massive improvement.
Oh, no question.
But I do think it's kind of funny, like founding fathers, like this whole Google IA project, this dystopian hell that it is. They just have a certain principle here: white man equals evil, and everything else flows from that.
Well, I tried to. So like, I don't even know why I did this because, of course, I know Google. I knew exactly what was happening. They were probably discriminating against white people. They're not too big of a fan. But I was looking into what Google's justification for this was because, I mean, it was so obvious that this was like the worst PR possible that they shut down the image generator. And we'll get into some of the text prompts too, which are maybe even more insidious in some ways. But Google said that some people were saying that there's some speculation of why this could happen. So one of them was Margaret Mitchell. She's a former co-lead of ethical AI at Google, a chief ethics scientist at AI startup Hugging Face, yada, yada, yada. So Google might have been adding ethnic diversity terms to use prompts, quote, under the hood. In that case, a prompt like portrait of a chief could become portrait of a chief who is indigenous. In this scenario, appended terms might be chosen randomly, and prompts could also have had terms appended. And then the other possibility is that Google could have been one second. Google could have also been giving higher priority to displaying generated images based on darker skin tone. So, for example, if it generated 10 images for each prompt, Google would have the system analyze the skin tone of people depicted in images and push images of people with darker skin higher up in the queue. So if Gemini only displays the top 4 images, the darker skinned examples are most likely to be seen. And I have one quote that maybe sums up this entire thing. Quote, once men turned their thinking over to machines in the hope that this would set them free, but that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them. That's
Frank I like
Herbert
that one. Very good. Very good. Go Dune.
So have we never watched any sci-fi movies about the dystopian future?
Guess not. This whole episode feels very dystopian future.
Yeah.
It is. I know, with the IVF.
Terminator 2
Yeah.
warned you about the internet, people.
Right. Yeah, and I think like people are saying, well, this is sort of funny. I mean, they'll have to like fix it. What does it matter? But I did want to point out, doing some research on the stats, Google has an enormous social impact and an ability to shape the way people think and receive information. And I mean, I was looking up the stats in the public schools, 85% before the pandemic, 85% of American public schools had programs with Google Chromebook, which means that their students are using Google, which in all of their search engines are based on AI. People are like, oh, but those aren't AI. Yeah, it's all based on AI because it's you put in your thought and they try and like figure out exactly what you're asking and get you the most relevant, the most socially acceptable answers to your questions. And this is a huge number. Today, we have over 50 million students and teachers using them every day in the classroom. And this is an enormously influential group of people who are basically like coming up with this Gemini program, and you're like, this is a problem going into an election when everyone's going to be like, did Donald Trump really say? And they plug it into Google, and Google comes back with what their political ideology is.
Yeah, they're generated results. I mean, the thing is, people who don't think Google uses AI already, it's like you start typing into a browser, and it's like if you start typing in the word like Detroit, like DETR, and starts autofilling Detroit, and like tigers, lions, Institute of Art. What is like there's some guy on the keyboard batting that out for you? No, of course. I mean, they're generating results based on what they think you're going to say. I mean, like people get out. Come on, wake up.
Nighthawk, can you go through some of the text prompts real quick?
Yeah, this was more disturbing to me than the images even.
Yeah.
Because the images talk about like PR disaster. It was like too far, too fast. Definitely pull that back. But this was more disturbing. And they have not taken down the AI programs for the text prompts. Yeah, so we get Peter Hasson here. This one, the Google Gemini AI invented fake negative reviews about my 2020 book about Google's left-wing bias. Oh, whoa, look at that. And they were not only negative fake reviews, but they were fake reviews from people who are allies and
real
friends
people.
of Peter Hasson, right? Who actually had given positive reviews. If you have a copy of the book, look in the back of the dust jacket. These people actually liked the book, and Google goes ahead and generates these. So again, in a society where the vast majority of people are getting their information from Google AI, that is a huge issue. There's another one here. Oh, rabbit hole.
All this AI stuff, plus you get deep fake videos.
Oh, I was just thinking that. Yeah.
So Americans really need to be discerning that over the course of the next 10 months or whatever, as we have this presidential debate, and all these things are at stake. You might see a video and you might even agree with it. It might agree with your priors, as they say. It might be a video about Biden, and he sounds like he's stuttering and saying the dumbest thing in the world. And it's like, now hold on a second. He does stutter, and he is kind of an idiot right now, and he should just retire because he's 1,000 years old. But that might be a deep fake. So you got to be careful on some of this stuff. Like there's deep fakes against Trump. All these, there's videos out there that's like, that's actually not real. So you have to be careful. Like AI is gumming up the works. It's like you say, producing stuff that's factually not true. Like Canetti did not write that review. Like it drives me crazy.
Yeah, this one was really scary to me. Abigail Schreier or Mao. Because can't you just see your high schooler being like, I have to write a paper on political movements and communism. So they start typing into Google, who is worse, Mao or Donald Trump? But here we have Abigail Schreier or Mao, and Google AI Gemini is like, it's hard to say who negatively impacted society more. Mao Zedong, guys, he was responsible for somewhere upwards of 50 million, as many as 80 million deaths in China. Abigail Schreier wrote a book, Irreversible Damage, that is against gender affirming care, so-called.
What's the money line, Erica? It's both have been accused of harming society in significant ways, because those are exactly the same.
Oh my gosh. The same line came out when someone asked Gemini to compare Joseph Stalin with libertarians in the United States. Same line. Both have been accused of harming society. So these were much more chilling to me.
Libertarians are pretty whack.
Yeah.
But I did.
Truth be told.
Here's another example. Like even and I knew this would happen, but I was looking for someone emailed into the show, and I'm still putting together a response if you're out there right now about good resources on gender affirming care. I mean, I don't even like to call that gender affirming care, whatever you want to say.
Right.
It's a euphemism.
The euphemism. But I was like, oh, he wants some resources because he's a teacher and he is, of course, getting flooded. They're flooding the zone on all these things saying like, oh, people will commit suicide if you don't do it. And so he's like, my instincts are telling me like there's something off about this. So like, where can I find statistics? Where can I find like actual scientific research that isn't biased by spending whatever? And so I did a Google search, just seeing like, oh, what would come up if I had the same question? I was like, oh, I'm just going to go to Google. And of course, the first things that come up are like psychiatry.org. You can do this yourself. Study finds long-term mental health benefits of gender affirming care. Human Rights Campaign, which is like an insane activist group. Get the facts on gender affirming care. Like, I wonder what you're going to get there.
What could be wrong with affirming, Tom? God,
right.
What
And then
be against affirming.
gendergp.com, regret rates of gender affirming surgery are practically non-existent. So it's like you're going to get all these very chopped up, very pointed in one direction answers. Like it's crazy how little I can get of the other perspective here on well, Josh, don't out me like that, but anyway, like I guess it's like I wish I had answers on ways to fight back against how inundated a lot of these tech companies are with just garbage ideological takes, but maybe just be very aware of what you're consuming. And I would definitely verify stuff before you're moving forward on it.
Cross-check, triple check, right? Know who the sources are.
Yeah. So that leads me to speaking. Oh, sorry. Ads for Lent prayers. Okay. So Josh and I are making a consecration to St. Joseph, and we are doing that on Fridays. It's a good vibe. It's a good way to pray for the Loopcast of people here. It's a good way to get closer to St. Joseph. So if you want to do that, Don Calloway, he has a book. You can get it. You can join us along. We're meeting up every week, talking about what we've been reading, been praying the Litany of St. Joseph. Very, very positive. It's a great vibe. I don't know what else to say. Come hang out with Josh and I on Fridays. That is what we're doing there. So I'm first in the Twilight Zone. Nighthawk, you're going to have to line this up. So Politico, man. Politico just...
The gift that keeps on giving.
The gift that keeps on giving. So one of their writers went on MSNBC, I believe. And it says something interesting about where Christians believe their rights come from. If you want to play that, Nighthawk, this is going to be... You just got to hear it. There's no way I could even say it better than what was said.
Is that they believe that the one thing that unites all of them, because there's many different groups orbiting Trump, but the thing that unites them as Christian nationalists, not Christians, by the way, because Christian nationalists is very different, is that they believe that our rights as Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress. They don't come from the Supreme Court. They come from God. The one thing that unites all of them.
Yes, you're right.
The scary Christian nationalists, man. They believe what the founders all believed and wrote in the Declaration of Independence.
And all the other pundits around the table are like, oh.
I love the guy's face.
All these ghastly things.
The guy's face on the right was awesome. Like you could just see, like it didn't look like he took a shower that morning. He was very disheveled. I don't know if you can find it. He just kind of
was trying to escape the Christian nationalists hunting him down.
Yeah, look at this guy. This guy's face at a certain point was like, oh man, I can't believe you're saying that. So quick rebuttal to this lady from Politico. I'd have to dig up her name. She did write Heidi. She wrote a rebuttal saying like, you didn't even get it. You didn't even hear the rest of it. And the rest of it was basically her just making it worse.
Yeah.
So our rights, I believe everyone who founded America believed that our rights came from God and that the Constitution was written to protect those rights already enumerated to us by God. The big plus of this, it means that earthly authorities, aka the government, can't determine your rights or change your rights, which is pretty sweet, I have to say. So you have those to begin with. And not only did those scary Christian nationalists believe that, Catholics believe that, our founding fathers believe that. I'd say just about most of society believed that until Politico came along, maybe. I mean, this is like everyone. Politico and the White House right now are probably the big two.
Here's the thing, Tom. We maybe make assumptions about our elites that they actually know what the heck they're talking about. But maybe they do or maybe they don't. Maybe she's a true idiot. Like, honestly, how does she think this? But I wonder if
She was
it's
educated by Jesuits, she said in her rebuttal. So that
Oh,
please tell
Careful
me you're
what-
kidding.
please
I'm not.
don't.
No, she's like,
no.
I went to
I
Catholic
went
school,
to Catholic school.
and the Jesuits all reaffirmed this to me.
No.
I understand what natural law is. I'm not kidding.
That's priceless.
Oh,
Oh,
my
I'll find it.
brother.
I have it.
Goodness.
Bishop Barron, and I want to shout out to Miss in Maui 5 here in the comments. But Bishop Barron, yeah, he had a fire response, and you could tell, like, he watched it, and 30 seconds later, he pulls out his phone and is like, "I got to answer this." But he points out sort of the chilling effect that this kind of language has. He's like, guys, this totally opens the door to totalitarianism, because if your rights come from the state can take. There he is. The state can take him away, and you're worth nothing. And like, go back to the whole problem that the founding fathers are trying to address, is that you have this ruling class or this monarch who's above the law,
Yo,
right?
Shout out Brad Price.
Oh man, Brad Price. Which founding fathers?
believe this? The African American Washington.
Oh man.
Google Gemini Washington for sure thought this.
Yeah, there you go.
Google Gemini Washington. I like it.
So this reporter, she was Jesuit educated, huh?
That is
Mhm.
the ice
I'm
on
thinking the
cake.
next pope should be named Clement the 15th and just suppress the Jesuits again. What do you say?
I'm with you on that.
So yeah, I mean, come on. I actually think so. Here's the deeper take on this. I think they're really leaning into the Christian nationalism slur.
That's it.
Mhm.
And
That's it.
they
Label
are
everyone on it.
right, but they're big time overstepping. Like, if this was a huge stepping on a landmine, it's like you literally just contradicted what's in our Constitution. Like, that our rights, Thomas Jefferson, our rights are enumerated to us by our Creator. Like,
That's the Declaration of Independence, but yes.
sorry, Declaration of Independence. Sorry, I'm the idiot. I am. I'm not dumb
You were
enough to-
closer than Heidi was.
yeah,
That's
I'm
all
not
right.
dumb enough to think my rights don't come from God. But yeah, anyway, I just think it's a huge overstep. Like, if you're taking away the power of the Christian nationalist slur, when they were this weird kind of fringe group that no one really knew, there's like a few of them that are kind of strange. Now they're making everyone who thinks their rights come from God into a Christian nationalist. It loses its power. It's no longer effective.
I hope you're right. I really do hope that you're right, and it's a huge overstep. My concern is that the upcoming generations of the American people, especially, like, are so ignorant. They will just eat up whatever rhetoric is dumped out about Christians. And I hope you're right, though.
I got
I hope you're
something.
right.
Let
Go
me
for it.
next then. I got something.
Oh.
I don't know. You told me, Erica. You
Okay,
worry about
glimmer
the-
of hope. Bring it on.
You worry about the next generation. Well, this mom wrote in an article into Slate magazine. She's really worried. You see, her daughter's personality has taken a very concerning turn thanks to TikTok. Now, I don't like TikTok, but here's what happened. You're thinking, oh no, has her daughter started vaping? Is she going to start an OnlyFans website where she's selling her body to everyone?
Mm.
No, here's the concern this mom has. You wouldn't believe it. This is actually kind of chilling. She says, I have a 16-year-old daughter, Rachel, we'll say, who's always been a go-getter. She's smart and personable and always had big plans for the future, such as college and an eventual career in high-level nursing. Like most teenagers, Rachel uses social media, mainly TikTok and Instagram. Although her father and I have regulations about its use, and we loosely monitor what she's consuming, we trust her to be responsible. Now, I wonder if I did something wrong.
Probably.
She wants to focus on maintaining her appearance and learning housewife skills and for her future said man.
Oh, she
You
wants to
can't
be
wait.
a dad wife.
She can't wait to be able to sit at home all day and make quilts and homemade butter while homeschooling her children.
Go, Rachel. It's a great life.
Well, I learned more and more about where this was coming from. I found out that Rachel had been spending almost all of her social media time looking at Tradwife accounts. Pages that glorify being a stay-at-home mom
That's awesome.
and turn it into some sort of cottagecore patriarchal fantasy. Now, here's where it takes the turn you're not expecting. Are you ready?
Cottages
That
are
was
sick.
already
Bring
a
it.
turn. I'm like,
Bring it.
what is happening? Is she gonna, she started freebasing drugs? Is she What, she's selling her body for what? No, she's worried that she's going to be a tradwife, right? She's going to be a stay-at-home mom. And this mom is so concerned. Here's the turn you don't expect. For the record, this mother writes, I myself am a stay-at-home mom. Like, what?
Wait,
What are
that's not
you
that
worried
bad.
about? Oh my gosh. I'm not looking down on women who choose homeschooling as a career. That's what I did. What I'm deeply concerned that Rachel is not actually in love with the idea of becoming a wife and mother. She likes the idea of being taken care of by a man. Oh no. And
Aw.
she's going to put herself in a situation that could turn abusive. Like, really? Like,
Well,
I mean,
Josh,
there's so much
it's
here.
I mean, do you think that she's probably talking about her own situation, right? She probably feels that her own situation is a little abusive.
I don't know if it's abusive or she just feels like she's alone, like she's like Reba McEntire in the 80s. Is there life out there? Like, I don't know, girl. Like, I mean, you feel sad about the decisions you made and you just want her to make the same. I mean, I don't know. That seems kind of wackadoodle to me.
Yeah, I always like these type of like write-in questions usually are like way too personal, or they're just like hiding how personal they actually are. There's one about I think it was a Washington Post op-ed about a woman who put $50,000 in a box and gave it to someone because she got scammed online. And the way that she wrote about it was like, I just got scammed for 50K. You can too. Like it's not just lonely, isolated idiots, non-college educated idiots that can get scammed online. I can too. And you're like, you just admitted that you're like the most incompetent person ever. Like she put $50,000 in a box and threw it into a car. So like,
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy what people admit on the internet.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, I've never understood. There's certain things that, like, women who write letters to guys in prison that, there are things about life that just don't make sense. And here's a stay-at-home mom who's absolutely despondent that her daughter might become a stay-at-home mom. It's like one thing if you just stay at home. It's another thing if you actually enjoy it.
Yeah. But she's writing it because she doesn't enjoy it. Right?
Yeah, obviously, I'm guessing that. Yeah, I mean, it's like,
which is unfortunate. It's sad.
Again, where people live vicariously through their children. It's like,
yeah.
Well, I wasn't a good athlete, so I'm just going to bring Timmy to every baseball game and summer league, and maybe he'll become a first baseman for the the Texas Rangers.
Not good.
Like, give it up, people.
Toxic.
Those are usually like the dads that wanted to be better athletes as kids and couldn't really hack it. Then they're the most intense like travel league dads that are like, my kid trains year round. I got it. It's like, it's a little unhealthy probably.
And you know what? The kids hate it.
Right. And then the kid burns out. It's like, yeah, oh my gosh, I've seen that a million times. All right, Erica.
All right. Well, I was going to finish this off with something that was edifying, and it didn't even come from a Jesuit. Didn't even come from a Catholic. I don't know if we're able to pull this up and roll it, Nighthawk.
Catholic lefties hate Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson.
Here
he comes, because he just said it like it is. And those of you who, as we're waiting here, his wife is entering the Catholic Church this Easter Vigil, so pray for her and pray for him. But this interviewer is asking him about the purpose of life, the purpose of the church. Very deep questions, of course, but I really liked this clip. So are we ready to roll that?
What's deepest inevitably takes on a Christian form. Like if you pursue any disciplinary endeavor, that will take you into the depths. If you pursue a multitude of disciplinary endeavors to the ultimate degree, that will take you to the final depths. And you'll discover what is to be discovered in the final depths. And that's the light at the end of the tunnel, I suppose. It's the darkness first, though.
Are we not inviting people to do that enough now? When we look at the Catholic Church and its decline in recent years, less young people going, less people signing up for a religious life. And since you could say the 60s.
Well, if it's all guitar and hippies, who the hell cares?
Yes.
Vatican II, let's say in the 60s, the church has been able to be more relevant, more welcoming. So
that's not work. It's shallow, obviously. Shallow and contemptible. It's supposed to be an invitation to the great adventure of life. What's the great adventure of life? Pick up your cross and follow me. Like, that's a hell of an invitation, but that's the invitation. And the church lost faith in that.
You think
We
the
have to
church
be
isn't-
relevant. Well, what's more relevant than that? As soon as you say
brother.
that you
All
need
right.
to be more relevant than that, what you're doing technically is putting something else above that. Well, that's not going to work, not if the original proposition was correct. And obviously, the original proposition is correct. You might say, well, why obviously? Okay, well, Christ faced and triumphed over death and hell. And you might say, well, why is that relevant? And the answer is, because that's what you have to do.
Yes.
Right. And everyone,
Bam. All right,
you're
Nighthawk.
stuck with it.
Okay, I
So
got
is
an
the Catholic
idea.
Church
I got an idea. Jordan Peterson for Pope.
Yeah. It's happened before. I mean, what
I mean-
Athanasius, like acclamation bishop right away.
People are like, I don't know. I mean, is he Catholic? It's like, well, we have Catholic Pope. I don't know if he believes that much in Jesus. This guy does. Let's go for it. Well,
Yeah,
he
Jordan
gets it.
Peterson, I feel like he is at the point where C.S. Lewis was, like at the end of C.S. Lewis's life. He's as Catholic as Lewis. You give him a few more years, and there's only one choice to make. As long as the Catholic Church can like get it together.
Just imagine how upset the bishops of Canada will be if Jordan Peterson is Catholic. So I agree.
I was going
I'm
to say,
praying for him.
if anyone from National Catholic Reporters listening to this, we are going to get the nastiest hit piece written about this. You just compared him to C.S. Lewis and said they should be the Pope.
Yeah, let's bring it on. Let's go.
Bring it on, dude.
I'm happy
This
to
was
have that debate.
this was the second clip that went viral from that interview. Actually,
Mhm,
the first one,
right.
he was like, "I do not understand why Pope Francis is so obsessed with climate change. Like, shouldn't it just be about saving
Yeah.
souls? Doesn't none of that matter if we can't save
Shouldn't
souls?"
this
Like,
be? Yeah,
Very
isn't your
upset
business saving
about
souls?
the weather.
exactly. That makes a lot
It
of
was
sense.
really good, really good. Yeah. So wanted to end on that note. It's good Lenten reflection from our non-Catholic friend Jordan Peterson.
Fire me up, man. Pick up
Mm-hmm.
your cross and carry it. That's all I gotta say.
Do it.
So every Monday, noon Eastern time, we will be here. Subscribe to the YouTube, like this, share it with some friends if you like, argue with Josh in the comments. There wasn't a lot of that today. You really went easy on the comment section today.
Hey, you know what though? I got a new TV set up and I get a new keyboard. Give me time, people. I'll be
You
back.
are looking very cinematic, I have to say.
Yeah,
if you want to
lovely.
see how cinematic Josh looks, got to pop over to the YouTube for that. But we're available on all podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Got a couple nice reviews there lately. If you want to help out, send us a review, 5 stars, and write us a nice little personalized note. If you want to talk to me, mailbag, loopcast@catholicvote.org. I still actually have a few I got to respond to here. But we appreciate you all so much. We are with you in Lent. Pray that we can make it through. Pray that we can make it to Easter. Pray for us here at the Loopcast. And this was a good one. We will see you on the next one. We have St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Pray for us. And we will see you in the next one. Peace, guys.
I think you'll survive Lent, Tom.